Hi everyone, my name is Sophie Everbach, and I'm a PhD student at Harvard University studying trees. Now, imagine a tree. What are you picturing? Maybe you're thinking about a large oak tree in the middle of a field, growing tall with gnarled branches going in every direction. Maybe you're imagining a tree in a forest, competing with other trees to break through the shade canopy and reach light. Or maybe you're thinking about a tree in your yard or in the park, with large branches near the base perfect for climbing. All of these trees are building their bodies to be tall in order to capture light for photosynthesis, the process of turning light, water, and carbon dioxide into sugar and oxygen. But in order to actually reach that light, they need to use the plant version of something familiar to all of us: muscles.
Now everyone, put your arm out and then flex it. What is happening? Well, the muscles in your bicep are shortening, causing your arm to lift. Trees can actually do the same thing, producing a special kind of wood to help them adjust their bodies and branches to search for light. This special wood that acts like a muscle is called reaction wood. Reaction wood can be found in all sorts of trees. In most flowering trees, it acts like your arm's bicep, pulling the stem or branch up. While in other trees, specifically pines, it can be found on the underside of the stem or branch, pushing it up like a beam support. Plants use reaction wood to right themselves when they're growing at an angle, like you would see on the side of a hill or riverbank, or if the tree got knocked down. Reaction wood can also be used in tree branches to keep them strong and direct them towards the light. Trees can also produce this modified wood in response to wind, since wind can be a repetitive mechanical stress on the tree. But to really understand this wood muscle, we first have to discuss how wood grows. So if you remember, plant cells are actually shaped like boxes. Now, they aren't empty boxes. They are filled with all of the things that make cells function. But for our purposes right now, we can think of them as boxes. These boxy cells can stack, like building a brick wall, to make the body of the tree. And when a tree grows, two things need to happen. First, the cells need to divide, going from one cell to two cells in special areas of cell division. Those new cells then have to elongate in the direction the tree wants, usually to get taller so they could reach the light. But trees also need to make their trunks wide enough to be structurally sound and not fall over. Therefore, every year, the tree adds many layers of these box-like cells in a ring of dividing cells around the stem, making the stem wider. Trees can't really go back and change the cells in their wood once the cells have reached maturity, so most of the changes they have to make to their bodies must happen during this growing season, when they are developing the new wood.
This is actually a huge issue for trees. They can't just get up and walk away from a bad growing condition or to go find the resources that they need. While you or I could go grab a drink or a snack, trees have to instead slowly grow themselves towards the resources, light or water, that they need in order to grow. So when a tree finds itself growing at a strange angle or needs to extend its branches towards light through the canopy gaps, they have to slowly grow new reaction wood over the course of a season in order to angle themselves towards that light.
But why am I studying this weird wood? Well, my work is driven by the question, is it possible to be good at more than one thing? Specifically, I hope to better understand the structure-function relationships in trees that grow under this stress. So, what do I mean by structure-function relationships? Let's break it down. Function refers to some process that an organism needs to do in order to survive. In humans, you can think about the function of breathing. We need to breathe to get oxygen. We have certain structures, such as the lungs, that help us achieve this functional need to breathe. Our bodies have evolved many of these special structures, such as bones to hold our bodies up, a digestive system to give us energy for growth and movement, and veins and blood to transport oxygen throughout the body for respiration. Without these functions and the structures evolved to do these things, it would be very hard to survive. Trees also have functions that they must complete to survive, and structures that help them do these functions. The main functions performed by the wood are support, or making sure the tree's body is strong and tall enough to reach the light, sugar storage, so the trees have enough stored energy to grow, and water transport, so trees can move water from the soil to their leaves for photosynthesis. To do these functions, trees have evolved fibers for support, sugar storage cells for sugar storage, and xylem vessels as plumbing tubes for water transport. In this triangle image, you can see the fibers are pink, the sugar storage cells are blue, and the xylem vessels are the big white holes. But what happens if a tree has to prioritize one of its functions due to stress? What if more of its body has to be fibers in order to stay strong and reach light, such as what happens with stress-modified reaction wood? How does this affect the other two axes, sugar storage and water transport, of this triangle? My research tries to answer this question by growing trees under mechanical stress and then looking at their wood anatomy. So, what do my experiments look like? Well, in my first experiment, I take a bunch of trees and then grow them at a tilt of 45 degrees for 6 months in order to see how trees respond to gravity. Over those 6 months, the trees grow the stress-modified reaction wood, which basically flexes their bodies towards the light and against gravity with this tree muscle. You can see that here, with this tree initially growing straight, and then after 6 months of being tilted, it looks very curved, as the tree was trying to grow towards that light. My second experiment looks at trees responding to being bent by wind. In this experiment, I take a bunch of trees and bend them in one direction twice a day to a specific degree using a curvature template. The trees are then left upright the rest of the time. This experiment produces reaction wood on the side being stretched by the bending. Lastly, at the same time as I grow my tilted gravity trees and bent wind trees, I also grow my control trees, or trees that are not undergoing any of the tilting or bending. It is important to have a control in science as a baseline, or normal wood, to compare your other experiments to. So after all 3 experiments have been going for 6 months, I then harvest the trees and cut the stems into 8-centimeter sticks and store them in a preservative chemical. Once I am ready to look at their anatomy, I have to boil the sticks for 2 hours to soften up the wood. I can then slice the sticks into really thin sections using something called a microtome. This uses a very sharp knife to cut the softened wood into small slices that are even smaller than a millimeter. You can think of it like a salami meat slicer, except for science. Once I have a bunch of thin tree slices, I then stain them with different dyes in order to highlight the different structures in the wood. The red dye sticks to cell walls, highlighting the fibers, while the blue dye sticks to specific sugars, highlighting the sugar storage cells and the inner layer of the reaction wood fibers. I then take my dyed slices of wood into the microscope room, where I can look at the wood anatomy of my stress-modified trees up close. This particular microscope is linked to a computer, so I can take close-up pictures of different parts of my tree slices and then piece them together like a mosaic to give me the whole cross-section of the tree. Then, when all of this processing is over, we get a bunch of images like this. Here we can see one of my oaks in the tilt experiment, responding to gravity. The reaction wood tree muscle allowed the tree to right itself and grow towards the light. Here, the reaction wood is that large patch of dark red wood, and close up, we can see how different that reaction wood looks compared to the pinker normal wood of the tree before the experiment began. I can then take these tree images and do statistical analyses on the number and size of sugar storage cells and xylem vessels in the tension wood, comparing these to our normal wood control trees in order to determine how the sugar storage and water transport functions of the trees are altered in trees that are dealing with gravity or wind stress.
Trees are constantly under stress. It might be the stress of needing light or having a strong body that deals with gravity and wind, like my trees, or it could be other stressors like drought or insect attacks. And in general, trees have adapted to handle these stresses. But these stressors are likely becoming more intense under climate change, so it is extremely important that we understand how trees are responding to all types of stress in order to recognize how trees can adapt and what management strategies we can use to help trees survive and thrive. My research is just a piece of this larger story, and I'm excited to see where it goes next.